So much, of course, to worry about. Now, in addition to drowning in debt, Americans today also worry about things like war with multiple countries. They worry about terrorist attacks here at home. And it turns out government officials are trying to add another thing to our list. A recent report shows that the Obama administration is trying to figure out a way to spread the word about a potential nuclear attack. But they want to do so without being too alarmist. It's cost some taxpayer dollars, but the final product is a 130-page report called Planning Guidance for a Response to a Nuclear Detonation. Ira Chernus is a professor of religious studies at the University of Colorado at Boulder. And Ira, I know you wrote an article about this report for Alternet, and I just want to start by asking you, in general, your first reaction upon reading this report and the articles written about it.
It reminded me very much of the same kind of literature that was produced during the Cold War, especially during the Eisenhower era, which I've studied pretty closely. And then as now, it all seemed very irrational, very Kafkaesque, a kind of Alice in Wonderland sort of approach, where they're trying to make it sound like it's all very reasonable, but when you actually take a close look, it just doesn't make any sense. And
I want to get to the specifics here. So I just pulled out a couple of points from the report that I want to kind of bring up and discuss. Now, according to the report, the people most likely to survive a nuclear blast are rich white men. I know you also pointed out that the survivors, quote, should not seek shelter in buildings that are on fire, and that there are certainly a lot of plans for first responders to save people for search and rescue missions, despite the fact that anywhere near this blast would undoubtedly be full of hazardous chemicals and high levels of radiation, broken glass, down power lines. The list goes on. So I want you to talk about some of the ironies here in this report.
I particularly focused for the headline on that issue of the rich white men, only because very briefly the report claims that rich white men are the least likely to be psychologically affected. It doesn't explain where it got this information, but it claims that if you're a woman or if you're a person of color or if you're a socioeconomic lower class, you're more likely to be psychiatrically disturbed, which I thought was rather ridiculous. But then it goes on to give these elaborate plans for first responders to enter into the zone of what it calls moderate destruction, a half a mile to a mile from ground zero. But then it makes it clear that they won't be able to get there. So all those plans that it lays out are really quite useless. And then there's these elaborate plans for people more than a mile out to take shelter, but it's not at all clear where these people will get into those shelters.